good evening. I know Connie is on here, so hopefully everybody can hear me, and we are having a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday night already. So hopefully Chuck will be here momentarily. He will pop in, and I will just mute him for a moment. But only one. Can't believe it's just Connie. I don't believe that this software works some days. I really don't. Technology. I don't know if anybody else is out there in the world of YouTube and Facebook land, so never know, I guess, right? How are you doing, Connie? I should ask you, how are fall colors? Should I attempt to get up tomorrow morning and head up to like McGregor early in the morning? So that is the plan. We will see what happens. So lots of new and exciting things coming up as well. I won't let it all out of the bag just quite yet, but hopefully we will have some participation in the future endeavor here that I think a lot of people will like, off the realms of social media, of course. So we will hopefully see how that works. I may talk about a little bit tonight. I don't know quite yet. So, not on Facebook. Let me look. It is not, Connie. You are correct. That is really weird. I thought we fixed that. Let's try this again. Like I said, technological advancements, they work or they don't. Yeah, it says unable to connect. You know what? I'm going to try something real quick. I'm going to try an old crash course of an old hop on here real quick and see if it will work. Well, gotta love two authentication factor junk, man. See if this works. I do not know why it disconnects from Facebook. I think that is a Facebook issue. So bear with me here. Well, Chuck is here momentarily, so I'm going to try something here. That's really weird. Oh, well, we got at least a couple here. Well, we will get started here. I'm just going to bring Chuck in real quick. Hello, sir. How are you? We are live.
So I am great. Thank you. Now I'm
awesome.
nervous.
Well, now you're nervous. Nothing to be nervous. I have nothing going on over here. So, well, hopefully my Facebook will decide to reconnect here momentarily. You know, gotta love all that technological stuff. Keep saying unable. Man, technology, man. Let's try this again. Well, you know what? I'm going to try a last-ditch effort here on one other thing. Well, I am live on my personal page. We will just go from there because I think some people will pop in. Well, we got at least two this evening. Usually everybody comes from Facebook, sir. So how have you been?
Me, I've been great. Wonderful. How have you been?
Good? No, I'm surviving. It's been an interesting year. So, well, we've got, let's see who I've got. I got Connie on here at least. Hopefully Facebook will connect her. If not, we'll reshare it. But so let's see. You know what? Connie says maybe we should post the YouTube link to Facebook. Man, this always goes perfectly fine till you have somebody else on the other end. So, man, I'm going to do that real quick. Let's see if that will work. That is obnoxiously annoying. Well, it won't let me do that either. Well, you know what? I'm not going to waste your time. We're just going to get rolling here. Oh, now I got 4 people. Oh, now I got, I don't know. There's some people coming across. Some maybe working, not working. Who knows? Well,
no worries.
It's technology. So I'm going to try this one other connect again to things, but I have no clue why it does this.
The internet hates you.
It does. It really does. Like when I first started this, it was like audio connection issue galore. And then we had no issues after that, knock on wood. So, well, that's okay. Oh, we got 5 now. So people are popping on here. So we'll kind of go from there. So, well, first of all, I mean, I don't know if everybody on the live is familiar as Chuck. I know, God, how many years ago, Chuck, was that when you came out to Lynn Area Photo Club all the way out here in the middle of nowhere? Had to be like, I want to say like 5 years ago, but my perception of time.
I'll be closer to 6, 7.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because I was still at Photo Pro then, and I've been gone from there. Would have been, let's see, 5 years last May. So yeah, probably about 7 years ago because I was Photo Club president. So time flies when you're having fun or you're just getting old, one of the two. So that's how it works. Well, awesome. Well, we will get started. Like I said, I met you first through, what was it, Lynn Area Photo Club, and I was trying to think tonight, or well, actually this week, I was like, I don't remember how I found you in the first place, somewhere on the interwebs, and I know the image though. It was the image, I can't remember what you call it, but it was the one that you have the boat out on the lake. Yep, that's the one that drew my eye the first time, and I was like, you know what, I like this, and I started following in. I guess it brings us today, right? So, well, first, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. You can tell the whole world whatever you want, lies or not. I don't care.
Oh, yes. It's so much easier if you would do it. My name is Chuck Kimmerle, and I'm going to pretend I'm looking at you all by staring into my camera. That is so
right.
I'm just going to stare in the middle of my screen. I'm a black and white landscape photographer, but I am not. I don't think I'm a traditional landscape photographer. I kind of am out maybe a little bit on the periphery. I like to do things, photographs with a lot of man-made elements, photographs that are very stark and decidedly not pretty. I don't mean to photograph. I'm not photographing negatively. I'm just photographing a different side of what we might consider beautiful.
I would agree. So, yeah, I was kind of funny. I was just recently, one of my old art instructors from high school was posted a painting, and he was like, "It's not real pretty" or something, or it's like there's flaws in it. And I said that, well, that's what makes art. So that's what I love about your work. It's different. You know, it's not like we all think of, you know, landscapes as pretty and nice, and it's all those grand scenic scenes. But I love that I think you were on a podcast. Ages F-Stop, Collaborate and Listen. I think that's it.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Yep. So I was listening to that recently, and I was like, you know, you made some very good points on there. But I think you made a point on there. You're talking about where, you know, it's kind of like hard to photograph what you photograph. You know, because where are you at now these days? That's a good question I should ask you.
What was that question?
Oh, where are you at these days? You're not in like North Dakota anymore, right?
Oh, physically. I thought you meant like emotionally.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank God.
Well, either way.
It's going to be a tearjerker. No, right now, we went from North Dakota to Wyoming to New York City. to now we're in Owens Valley, California.
Oh,
By
okay.
Lone Pine, hour from Death Valley.
Oh, perfect. So
I think so.
yeah, because I don't know. I thought about doing Yosemite this year in the winter with a group of people, but that's probably not going to work now. So maybe it's Death Valley at the end of January. I don't know. We'll see if I get there or not. But back to what I was talking about was I'm all over the place today. But I think you were talking on that podcast about, kind of like what you're photographing in Wyoming. Sometimes it's hard to find something to photograph. So I think, you started photographing your environment and kind of going from
I kind of always have, actually.
Mhm.
I'm not much of a destination photographer. I like to be able to really get to know an area, and you can't do that when you go somewhere for like 5 days or 6 days or 3 days.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to delve really deep into one area, which for me usually means that I am, within maybe a few hours of the house.
Mhm.
And I do travel, I do camp, I do, longer photo trips, but I do my best work closer to home where I can be out in the environment time and time again. And I'm able to be out in that environment in all sorts of different conditions.
Yeah. It's kind of like my thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't travel far from home. It's easier that way. I feel like you just said, it's hard to find or understand a place in 3, 4, 5, or 6 days. And I feel so rushed when I go somewhere because, like, if I'm at one spot for half a day, it's like, oh, what am I missing out on? So then I feel like I'm rushing to the next point, and then I come back and I've really got nothing accomplished because I'm always chasing something that I'm worried about missing. So, it's one of those
And I
things.
think that's how I think that's how we kind of
No,
fall into that trap of photographing like icons, because we may visit somewhere for a week. We don't have a lot of time to photograph. We don't want to come back empty-handed. So we sort of lower our standards. Next thing you know, we're standing on an overlook next to everybody else. And I try to avoid those areas like the plague.
Yes,
it's hard.
It is, because you get out there and then you're like, oh man, I kind of call them like the insurance shots. A lot of people go to, say, I don't know, Glacier, and then they're up at Glacier and they're like Lake McDonald, everybody's there. I don't care. I think I was up there last June or previous June, and it was just like, I was like, I'm actually in the park. I'll be right here and be able to get, and then there's always 5 or 6 people out there before the sun rises. And I kind of started to wander off because I'm the same way. I don't care to have lots of people, or even like, where was that? White Sands was awesome, though. I don't know if you've been to White Sands, but there was nobody there when I was there in February. It was like a desolate land of nobodiness. So that was awesome. It was like having the whole park to myself. So
there's nothing better.
No, there's not, because then you can totally focus. But so I was kind of thinking ahead here, and just, you're the black and white. So the big thing for me is, how did you get started in black and white? Like, did you fall into it or just kind of?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I do sort of, but I used to work in newspaper, photojournalist, newspaper work.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the 80s, pre-digital, we would carry a little tin of slide film and a little tin of black and white, depending where it was going to go in the paper. And there were times we did enterprise work, which are photographs, just standalone features that, hole fillers, or if we find something really interesting. And it was up to us to decide whether it was going to go on the inside or like on a cover, shoot color black and white. And I, more often than not, came back with black and white. The editors would go, yo, you got a feature picture? Great, we need something for the front page. I'm like, I shot in black and white. And I got in a lot of trouble for that at times, and I was just good enough as a photographer where they weren't ready to quite make me pay for my transgressions.
Right.
And but I don't know why black and white drew me. I think part of it was back in the day, it was really the only photographic medium that you could be creative with in printing, what we'd call post processing right now. Where with the chromes, you didn't have a lot of latitude. So basically, if you printed those for a contest or whatever, you pretty much were kind of limited to what the slide looked like. There was not a lot of burning or dodging you could do without color shifting or without screwing things up. But with black and white, you had a lot more freedom. That might be part of the reason, to be honest. I don't know. It's just something I sort of fell into. I saw the world, and I still do see the world, just a little bit differently. I don't see. I mean, I see colors. I mean, I'm not colorblind and I'm not stupid, but I just really don't respond to color as much as I do to the what I think of maybe is like the secondary characteristics, such as what everyone talks about with black and white, the shape, form, texture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I struggle. See, I want to do more black and white, but then I look at stuff and I'm just like, that's going to be an awesome black and white image, and then I'm like, okay. And then there's stuff that I don't even think it doesn't cross my mind. And then one day I was like, oh, let me try this black and white. And that's like, poof, aha moment. So, but I guess when I got into I was going to start out in the world of photojournalism too when I started in college. And at that point, obviously, it was all digital. So, everything was always color. And I think it would be blasphemy if anybody ever thought of to run anything in black and white at that point in time. So,
yeah, and I think a lot's lost because of that. Photojournalism cut its teeth in black and white. Back in the day, the photojournalists were shooting 4x5 sheets of film one at a time, and they would run out with a couple of film packs and a 4x5 Graflex with a big flash on it, jump up in somebody's face, take a picture. And I think I think we've lost a little bit. But it's the way things are. But that kind of actually reinforces why I stay with black and white, because everything has become color right now.
Yeah, it's definitely it is kind of, I wouldn't say a lost art, but it's something that I think it's very secondary to a lot of people these days. It's just like, oh, I'm going to do this in color. I'm going to go, it's always boosting your saturation, boost your vibrance, do this, and it's never desaturating things and all that good stuff.
Well, actually, that's kind of popular. That half desaturated pictures are pictures desaturated 70 or 80%. So there's just a hint of color. It's actually kind of a contemporary thing. And so it's not quite black and white. It's not quite color, but it can make some really, really interesting images.
It can. So where was I going to go with that? I was going to go somewhere with that. I got why you're black and white. So what was I going to say? So kind of you talked a little bit about, how you kind of just, go and you kind of photograph your environment, within 2 hours of the place of residence kind of thing. What does your process look like in general, just photographically? Are you a pre-planner kind of thing? Like, I'm going to go here and possibly do this, or is it complete 100% I stumble upon what I find?
It is 98%. I just found something. I stumbled upon it, which that's not the greatest way to put it. I should say, what's a better way? I stumbled upon it there. We'll just say it that way. I rarely plan. I might pick like a general direction. I might say, all right, I'm going to go, like in Wyoming, I would say, all right, I'm going to go out towards Yellowstone. Yeah. And I would spend, it's about 6 hours away from where we were living. I would spend about a day and a half getting out there, maybe spend 1 day, day and a half in Yellowstone, and then 2 or 3 days getting back. So I have a really general idea, just so I can tell my wife which way I'm going, but I don't really have a plan. Because if I have a plan, then I'm going to miss out on something else because I may be a little too focused on that plan.
Oh, definitely. I'm kind of the same way. It's that I was just recently talking. I think we did. Yeah, I was live a couple of weeks ago where I was talking. Photographing without intention, because I feel like if I go out with intention in the sense of I'm going to have all this pre-visualized, like I'm going to go to this location and find this exact thing, and then when you don't find said subject or things don't turn out the way you're planning, for me, then I get sucked into this deep black hole of abyss of pissed off creativeness. It just doesn't, then it sucks the life out of me for quite a while, and then I have to dig myself out of it. So for me, I think some days I feel like for me half of it is just half the battle. Well, I shouldn't say battle, it's a bad way to put it. Half the excitement is seeing what I find and bring back at the end of the day. And go from there.
Well, there's a certain amount of like creative satisfaction when you can come back with an image that you have not seen before. I mean, granted, there's such an overlap and so many images have been taken. There's very little that's totally, completely unique. But if you can be somewhere where you're not expecting a picture and all of a sudden one pops up, that will make your entire day, your week. I mean, that's why I photograph. I don't photograph just to get a pretty picture because that's the easiest thing in the world. I live in one of the most photogenic places in the country right now, and getting pretty pictures is dime a dozen here. But that doesn't always float my boat. That's not creatively satisfying for me to get the easy pictures because I'm not in this. I don't want photography to be easy. I want to work for it.
I like that.
I want to earn it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Earn it. I don't like easy. Sometimes I feel like then it's no fun anymore. So, I mean, creatively speaking, how do you look at yourself from like a creative aspect? Like, how do I want to put that? Process or just in general is how you view things, how you view your subjects. Like connect with things. Them? Yeah.
Well, when I was working after newspaper work, I started working at a university as a photographer. And one day it was, and I'll get to your point in a minute.
You're fine. You can take as long as you want. I'm okay with that.
But it was a presentation, and in it was a photograph that I did. There's a new faculty tour every year. And it's all the new faculty, the spouses, they tour around North Dakota, meet a lot of people. Just get the lay of the land. It's kind of cool. And the president said of the university during his presentation, this is everybody who was on that bus, and talked about how much they saw, how much they did. But it wasn't everybody that was on the bus because, I was on the bus. I wanted to drive, but they wouldn't let me take my own car. So, when I did this group picture at the end, and that really annoyed me. And then, not that I didn't know this before, but when you're in photojournalism, and then when I was working at the university, basically doing kind of commercial educational stuff, as a photographer, I am always on the outside, always. I'm like a voyeur. I am never part of what's going on. And even though at the university I felt like I was maybe part of it, they did not, because I was a photographer. So, and then because they didn't, I realized I wasn't. And I didn't like that. So when I started doing my personal work, it was so that I could be like included. So when I'm looking at my subjects, now I'm kind of coming to the end. When I look at my subjects and I photograph them, I'm not photographing things like distant. I'm not photographing through the camera. I'm not letting the camera divide the subject and me. I'm letting it connect the subject to me. So oftentimes I will actually talk to my subjects, if it's a tree or a rock or whatever. Especially the bones, the carcasses I like to photograph. because I want to feel like with my subjects, I want to feel like there is a relationship, what's the word I'm thinking of here? That it's not quite, maybe a collaboration, that they have input, I have input. And it sounds a little hokey, but it works for me. But I want to feel like when I photograph something, I want to get to know it intimately in a way. I want to, I want to be able to say, I know you, almost like we're friends. And then when I'm done shooting, I thank everybody and put my stuff away and I'm gone. But I think it's the only way to do it. If I felt like I was an outsider photographing like I did in my younger days, it just would not be fulfilling.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that sort of answered your question.
Yeah, it did. It works for me. I'll take any answer I get. Well, I'm going to say before anybody else, I always forget there's other people besides you and me on here floating around. So I guess if anybody has questions, just pop them up there and I'll throw them up on screen. But I know there's always somebody out there with questions. But so you were mentioning your bones, and I've always loved those, and I think the one that always comes to my mind. Is it a barn with a horse bones in the bottom?
Yeah. Basically, the basement of a barn.
Yeah. How did you get into that? Like, I mean, just into that sense of like you started, like, is it you just got one photo one day and it piqued your interest? And you're like, I'm going to like start looking for this now, or did you realize that after a while you just realized that you're photographing this and now you have a series of work?
Yeah, there's no like intent, but I think when I'm looking at a pile of bones, whether it's a horse or a pronghorn that a hunter had left behind before or after they skinned it, or something that's maybe roadkill, anything, there's a story to that. And I think that, my photojournalism days, I spent almost 20 years doing it, really heavily influenced me. And I like to be able to tell a story. But I want to tell stories that don't just tell people things, but make people ask questions. I want it to be like a bit of a dialogue between the work and the viewer. So I found that with the bones, because that's where I really have a lot of conversations. Like, yeah, you've had better days, haven't you? How things going? Yeah, it's kind of, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll ask them, I say, what's your best side? And again, that sort of makes me feel like I belong, but I'm creating these stories in my head as I'm photographing because I want there to be that sort of intimacy with the subject. And for me, the bones, these were living things once, and it's gone, it's ended. And, in a way, I'm giving them just a small breath of life back.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
No, I like that. I think that was the first photo in your bone stuff that I saw that I was like, oh, that is super cool. Like I've never would have thought of that. And I'll say every time I see a pile of bones, I think of you. It's just one of those things. It's creating, how do I want to put that? You create images that are totally that unseen world, that most people just kick to the side and it's a pile of bones, and it's a part of the world. There's a story behind everything. So I love that.
Thank you.
So let me think.
If you go to a chicken wing restaurant, you're just not going to get me off your mind, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. So I mean, the one thing that I always have a challenge with, and I don't know if anybody else who tends to follow me here on this show, but I have a problem seeing in black and white in a sense, like how tones are going to come across. I mean, how do you get around that in a sense of there's like certain things are going to work in certain days, and I don't like rules. I hate rules to photography. I tell people there are no rules, but there's just things that work and there's things that don't.
Well, first off, that's kind of the first part of the question about color is I don't really think about it right now, and I really never have, but I think if I were to think about it, it comes kind of naturally now, instinctually. But I would basically just be looking at the shape, texture, forms,
Mhm.
which I am doing, and I'm not ignoring color. The worst thing you can do is ignore the color,
Mhm.
because when you convert to black and white, those colors are going to convert to a certain shade of gray. And if you have colors that are really, really saturated in your picture that you think are just going to become gray, they can often become really, really ugly.
Mhm.
So you have to pay attention to the color, but you have to be able to see beyond it as well. Also, you'll be able to use the color in post processing to help, change some of the tonal relationships, between the
Oh, mhm.
grays. You know how like greens and reds will often be very similar gray when you convert. So you kind of have to pay attention when you're photographing to think, you know what, I know these are going to be alike, but I can make that red part darker, or I can
Mhm.
make the green part darker. It's just a different way of thinking when you're out photographing. And then, what was that second part of your question?
I don't know if I even remember
The
now at this
processing?
point.
You asked about
Yeah,
process.
yeah. Just touch on your processing. That's on my list too.
Um, my processing is really, really simple. I used to be all Photoshop, but a couple years ago, I started playing around with Lightroom. After poo-pooing it for like a decade, and I realized it's much more like a darkroom printing session.
Mhm.
The tools you're using are very kind of large and, I don't want to say unwieldy, but you don't have the precision you have in Photoshop. And at first, I thought that was going to hold me back. And now I realize that it's actually helping me progress, because in Photoshop, I was paying too much attention to unimportant things because I could. If I had
Mhm.
something this small in a photograph that I thought maybe was too dark, I would go in and select it and I would lighten it up. And in reality, it made no difference to the overall message of the picture. But because Photoshop allowed me to do something, I decided to do it. Where in Lightroom, you
Yeah.
have to be a little more selective on your editing because you don't have that level of detail. And I like that,
Mhm.
because in a darkroom, if you wanted to, for those of you who've never been in a darkroom, if you want to make working with negatives, you want to make part of a picture darker, you have to burn it in, and you normally do it by making a little circle with your hand like this, right above the print where the light hits it. I mean, this is far from being like exact, and you
Yeah.
get really, really good at it after a while in the darkroom. So I didn't want that same level of control, and I wanted something that was maybe more organic in the process. And I think Lightroom does that. I think it's a little more organic. So that's
Mhm.
where I'm at now. I do very simple conversion. I don't use any third-party apps anymore. I played with Silver Effects. It's great, but I really don't need a ton of apps laying around. So I pretty much stick with Lightroom, and if I do it in Photoshop, same thing, just the black and white convert module. Then I will go down, of course, to the color sliders for black and white, which help you change the tonal
Mhm.
relationships. But I do that very, very lightly, because the mistake people make is moving those too much. And what you end up getting oftentimes are halos around certain objects, especially
Mhm.
if you're looking. For those of you who've ever done this converted to black and white, if you're photographing, say, a mountain against the sky and you want to darken the sky, so you take the blue slider to the left because the sky is blue. Take the blue slider to the left, it never perfectly matches up with the objects along its edge. So if you have a sky here and a mountain here, what you're going to wind up with on that edge is a white halo if you overdo it.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on that sky filter in Lightroom. I know people swear it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it causes more problems. I have more students I work with
Uh huh.
that come to me with the sky filter, some layer and some mask in Lightroom with the sky filter, and I can always tell. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if I use the sky filter in that, or the sky selection tool, I can tell around these edges. And they're amazed because they haven't looked into the details. So,
Yeah.
I don't use a lot of things when I convert. I kind of do a simple conversion, and then I'll use my editing skills to help bring out things that I want.
Mm-hmm. That's it's funny that you said you for years and years you poo-pooed on Lightroom and now you use it. And I did the same with Photoshop. It's like that's too complicated. It's over. There's all this junk, and now I'm kind of like I don't do a lot in it, but more than I used to. I go through a lot more just playing. Or I should say playing around with it, but it's definitely it's funny how tastes and things change with time, right? Connie popped up. Connie. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I started with like Lightroom 1, which basically was little more than say a photo cataloging program, and then you can do simple editing, I believe. So that, and then I played a little bit with Photoshop 2 when they brought a little more editing capabilities, or Lightroom 2. And after that, I said, yeah, this is never going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And little did I know.
I know, right? That's how that works. So I've been there too. It's like, this isn't like kind of like I used to say that with digital a long time ago. I started out in film when I was in high school, so I kicked and screamed like, "It's the dumbest thing ever. Who would use digital?" And then guess what? Look what I have—an office full of digital equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in college in '83, not long before I graduated, I got a degree in photographic engineering technology. That's it. And I remember we talked about digital cameras back then. And we thought they were way, way off in the future, like flying cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it did take about 20 some odd years before they finally, maybe 15, 16 years from then before they started showing up.
Yeah. Connie just made a comment that she enjoys listening to you share your desire to make connections with the subject, even when it's an inanimate object. So I like that. No one has questions. I mean, there's somebody out there to have questions. It's like they're too afraid to ask. What else is on my list? It kind of like touched on everything that I can think of, but what do you want to talk about? That's a good answer. Outside of black and white in the world of photography, where do your passions lie? That's a good question.
I gotta tell you, a lot of my passions have died as I've gotten older. I used to be big into backpacking and canoe tripping. Going off with a canoe for like 2 weeks, and that stuff sort of falls by the wayside. And now that I'm in my 60s, it makes it, I could still do that stuff, but I just don't have the drive. Really, photography is my primary thing. I wish I were a little more like the stereotypical photographer who was also a musician, but that's just not me. But photography and family.
Yeah. That's it. I know I was almost let my secret project out, but I was doing a project with somebody where I had to do lots of typing and stuff, and it made me think too. Like I had to put stuff on paper for once for somebody with his photo thing, and I'm like, what would I do if I didn't have this? It's kind of like an identity for some of us. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have a camera tomorrow. I'd just be like, I wouldn't know where to go. I wouldn't know what to do other than go to work and come back home and then just sit here and stare at the wall until I go to work tomorrow, I guess. So,
let's get back to that secret you almost revealed.
My secret I almost revealed? What do you want to know about it?
What? Well, you can't just say almost like revealed the secret and then not tell us what it is.
I know, right? Well, everybody's been like out there for ages and ages and ages. I think I've been talking about the secret project for like a year now, but I might as well. It's where it needs to be. So I actually, when was that? 2 years ago, I was contacted by some loon through Instagram who's like, "Hey, you want to do a book?" And I was like, "No," because I thought it was a total scam. Like, you wanted me to be like, "Here's, you give us $9,000 and we'll make 8,000 copies for you and you can pay for them all, and then they'll sit in your basement and you can sell them." So I was like, "No." And I was like, "No, that's never going to happen." And actually, he kept like hounding me and hounding me and hounding me. And I was like, "Nope, not going to do it. You just want my money." You know, I'm like, I was waiting for him to be like, "Send us 50 Amazon gift cards and then we'll send you the contract or something." And it went on, and I just ignored it. I ignored it and ignored it. And he finally just like, "Dude, here's a proposal. Send us a proposal." So I sent him a couple of proposals and on different varying photo ideas. And the one I was super passionate about is, I haven't done it for a while. COVID kind of killed it off, but I did the portraits of Iowa farmers. And that's still on the books. It's just whenever it happens. And I thought they'll love it. So I pitched this thing of Iowa farmers, and they're like, "Yeah, that's cool, but no." I was like, "What?" And they're like, they wanted me to do a book of abandoned photos. And I'm like, I don't have enough work for that. And so then they turned around and was like, "Oh, what about just Iowa photos?" So I was like, okay. So that's kind of where it fell. And then when I sent the proposal, and then I hounded them for the next year, and they're like, yes, it's at the editorial board. They'll look at it. So it's nothing fancy. It's through a smaller publishing company, but that was always one of those goals they say you should set to reach for and see if you ever get there. And it's something you chase. And I thought, I'll never know when we'll ever want my photo in a book. But so like,
good for you. It sounds very cool.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. It's actually, I'm waiting for the printer to reach out to me within the next couple weeks. So hopefully we'll start getting it wrapped up. But it'll be cool. Something that I was always wanted to do and never thought it would happen. So now it's not the book I wanted, but it's a book. So, I kind of rushed it and then didn't rush it. And I'm one of those that I get the creative high, and then I kind of like run with it for a long time, and then it fizzles out, and then I have to get it back. And so it was kind of an on and off project over the last year. So, but yeah, I'm happy. We'll see. I mean, they say they sell about 1,000 copies. So, oh, Rick says, I checked out Chuck's work on Instagram. I really like the darker shots. Does he have a preference of either the darker shots or the lighter ones?
Well, I do both black and white. I'll be honest, I'm kind of going probably a little more towards the dark. A lot of the lighter stuff, I'd have to look and see what's up there. But
yeah,
a lot of that are maybe earlier pictures, or there are times when, if you're out in the snow of Wyoming or North Dakota, it's going to be a light picture. It's going to be really high key. And the popular stuff on black and white now is to go pretty dark, especially with your shadows. People push the shadows right to the edge. But I don't do it because it's popular. I think I like a lot of subjects that really stand out from the background, light on dark, dark on light. And it just so happens that lately I've been noticing more darker subjects or lighter subjects against maybe more of a dark palette. But thank you.
That's what that's what I've always loved about your work is that it's, your subject is always a little bit brighter than the background. That's kind of where your eye gets drawn into. And
yeah, everybody does it differently. I tend to like, my subjects tend to be really apparent, almost blatant in a way. And centered a lot. I want people to see the scene the way I saw it, which is like dead on. And I always tell them, if that like offends you that my pictures are centered, you can just do this. Move to the side till it's appropriately placed.
Yes.
Yeah, dark is really, I guess, kind of where things have been naturally progressing.
Which kind of leads, I just kind of question that popped in my head. I mean, is there anything I mean, I think every photographer has a photo that kind of like sticks in their mind that they've taken. Which one's that for you? I mean, or a place, I should say, place or an actual photo that you always go back to.
Boy, that's a tough one because every time I take a photo, that's the one that is the greatest photo I ever did. Well, in my mind, anyway. That's
Yeah.
the best way to think because you don't want to start taking the
Mhm.
worst photos you've ever taken. You just want
Yeah.
to keep working up.
Yep.
Trying to think of some pictures that I'm most proud of. There's one I like a lot from Yellowstone. It was just before we moved to New York City. I had an exhibit coming up in South Dakota, so I had to stick around Wyoming for a month after my wife left, and it was the September of Chuck. And I made a pass through Yellowstone, only to get. I really wasn't meaning to do it. It wasn't like a photographic destination, but it was the quickest way for me to get down to where I really wanted to photograph. And so I was driving through Yellowstone about 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. Sun hadn't come up yet, and I came across. It's so hard to explain pictures, but I came across this evergreen tree standing with this big ball of steam behind it, and it was interesting. But I noticed too, at the same time, there was a jet 5, 6, 7 miles in the air with a contrail, and it was
Mm-hmm.
about to go right over the top of the tree. And I got the tripod out, the camera set up, everything made, and the picture took. And if I say it was longer than like a minute and a half, I'd be lying. It probably was closer to about a minute from the time I saw the picture till I actually took it. And that's setting up the tripod, getting the camera mounted, get everything set.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to know your gear. You know, know where everything is in the car, know where every little button is, or the buttons that you need anyway. Know your exposures. Everyone should be really comfortable with their exposures. And I snapped off 3 frames. The first one was perfect. The second 2, the jet had moved a little too far over.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider that really to be like one of my better pictures, but also one of the I want to say most fortunate as opposed to luckiest, just because it's one of those right place at the exact right moment.
Yeah. Yep.
And those rarely come about.
Right. That's just kind of how that. I'm going to try something here with the magic of the interwebs. It's that one, right? That's not the full image. I don't know if you can see that or not.
I cannot.
No, but
So
everybody else should be able.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, I'll
Yeah,
look in the
I'm-
reflection in your glasses.
Oh, true, right? So yeah, that I remember that one. Now that you mention it, I'll stop sharing that so I can get back to actually seeing you. There you are. So, there was something else. You said something that tripped something in my brain, and I was going to say, oh, here's a good. What's your best photographic story? Anything in particular?
Well, it gets a little preachy, but and I've
That's
told this a bunch of times. So if anybody out there has heard it, I apologize. I was in one January. I had a few days off, and I said, we were living in Wyoming. I'm like, I'm going to go out to the Tetons because Yellowstone's closed in the winter and Tetons is open. So I decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to photograph some snow stuff. So I'm out there and I'm staying at the only hotel I can afford in town, which is a Motel 6. Because for those of you who've ever been to Jackson, Wyoming, you know how the prices are, where the billionaires have displaced the millionaires. So I'm at the Motel 6 back then, even still paying like $125 a night. And I got up one morning way before sunrise because it was almost, I don't know if it was a full moon or real close, but I thought I'm going to go out and get some moonlit stuff because I woke up early. I said, I'm just going to go out. So I noticed that as the moon was setting and it was starting to brighten up in the east a little bit, that the moon was going to set in between these two mountain peaks. And I thought, wow, Chuck, you're so lucky to be the first one to really notice that. So I get in this parking lot, and it's not a big parking lot because most of it's snow piled up. Snow is about 5 feet deep in the field, and they got these huge piles all around. And I'm in there about half an hour, 20 minutes. It's about 12 below, really cold. And a car pulls up. I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that. Guy gets out with a camera. Oh, okay, no big deal. He was like the other side of the parking lot. Then another car showed up. And I thought, boy, that's kind of weird. And then another one, I thought maybe they were a group. But I could tell that they weren't interacting, that they weren't a group. Next thing you know, it's me and about 7 or 8 cars. The number changes every time I tell the story because I honestly don't remember. Me and 100 cars. And one guy has 2 tripods and 2 cameras. And it just dawned on me that this discovery I made where the moon is setting in between these mountain peaks wasn't a discovery at all. I mean, it was something that people knew about, and I found out later that just out of sheer coincidence, it was like the only time of the year that night where the moon set in that exact perfect spot. And it's in guidebooks. I had no clue. So after the parking lot got a little filled up, I'm like, I can't stay here. I'm not getting, it's like 12 people all getting the same exact thing. So I left. And I'm starting to second guess myself down the road because I'm not seeing another picture. I'm thinking I should have just taken that for sure picture. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. And down the road, and about 10 minutes later, I came up on this scene that made me turn around. I think most of the miles in my car I spent, turning around, going the other way. Turned around, gotten a better vantage point, and it's a picture of the Tetons, Grand Teton, up there with this little tiny, really small grouping of evergreens that sort of mimic the shape of the mountain. And that is one of the other pictures when you ask ones that are memorable that I think I might have mentioned. But it's because I did not stick to the crowd, that we weren't exactly shoulder to shoulder, but, we weren't far apart either. And I think because I made the decision to leave that guaranteed picture, but, everyone's going to get basically the same picture because I made that decision to leave it and go off on my own and take my chances. I think I got a better picture than I ever could have in that parking lot.
Yeah.
And that taught me a huge lesson.
Mm-hmm. It is what that's always like. Obviously, I turn around a lot too. I always tell people to look behind them. It was like everybody's so worried about going ahead, and sometimes you look behind. So, well, I won't keep you all night. We're starting to wrap up here. So, you have any parting shots or words you'd like to say before we wrap this puppy up?
Oh, no, you're
exciting
asking a lot. Oh yeah, well, I will say, the workshop, we are doing one in December, is full, and now that there's a continuing resolution till the middle of November, where they're going to duke it out with the budget again, I'm really worried that if they decide to close the government down again, that I'm going to be SOL. Doing it with Michael Gordon. We do a couple workshops here, and then we have another one in March on printing in Death Valley. So we'll have printers out there. It's just sort of the whole workflow to get, and it's in color or black and white, and that's something. And that's in March. And that's something that people kind of need to know. Even though I've been shooting strictly black and white landscapes now for like 13 years. I still
Yeah.
have done more color pictures in my life by far than black and white.
Mhm.
So, people are always kind of amazed because I make fun of color sometimes in presentations, just levity. And I'm not really serious about making fun of it. But, I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I do the same thing.
Yeah, it was a boring story anyway.
Well, awesome. Does anybody have any last minute questions for Chuck before we?
That was a horrible way to end. Please, somebody ask a
Oh,
question so that isn't the end.
I started in a horrible fashion. Let's see. I always forget there's always this delay of the interwebs for comments that come through. I'm like, no, we're good. And then somebody has something. So, no, I thank you for taking your time out of your Tuesday night to hop on my little minute drop in the world here. So it's always enjoyed your work. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I always figured I should probably get somebody else on here every once in a while that doesn't want to listen to me drone on. So, well, if nobody's got questions, we're going to wrap this puppy up. And again, thank you, Chuck. It was awesome. I always enjoy talking to you, seeing your work. So we will keep in touch and give me a call sometime. Maybe if I'm ever in Death Valley, I'll let you know. I don't know if I will be, but it's always on my list. It just won't be in the summertime.
Oh, come on. All right,
I know, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good night. Bye. So hopefully everybody enjoyed Chuck this evening, as I always do, and you are welcome, Corey. So let's see as I wrap up. So some of you got to hear my secret project, all right? Oh, you are welcome, Connie. I've got to plan out future stuff, what's coming up for the show. I've kind of been slacking because I have another project I'm working on that everybody will be able to participate in here, hopefully sooner than later. I'm looking for a launch date of December 1st. I'm kind of slowly rolling into this thing. So as always, I'm going to have to fix this weird internet web things, but awesome. Well, I'm glad. Hopefully, like I said, everybody enjoyed Chuck. And as always, thank you guys for showing up every Tuesday. And hopefully, I got lots of things to do. Oh, before I forget, I'm actually doing a photo show coming up. It's at Press Coffee. It's nothing fancy in Iowa City. I'll post when we have, I think it's a Wednesday night. We're doing like the opening reception. So if you can make it down there, that would be awesome because I have a feeling no one's going to show up, to be honest. I did a show with them, I don't know, several years ago of images I printed and put a lot of work into it. Not that I didn't put a lot of work into this show, but what I did do though, it's all with my cell phone. All the photos were shot with my cell phone. I'm kind of making a point with it that you can still take good photos with a cell phone. Now, some of them didn't print real well, but that, I don't know what went wrong with that. But that's a whole nother story. So that will be coming up. And then if you have nothing to do on Sunday before I head off to work, I will be at Lynn Area Photo Club talking about, guess what? Mobile photography. So it'll probably be about an hour presentation, give or take, or so. But just a real basic presentation on how this magical box can get you better photos, or I should say, better ways to take photos with this thing, because I always say, what's the best camera you've got? It's the one you've got with you. So I'm going to sign off here. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful night, because I'm going to try to get up super early, which might be hard considering I don't go to bed till 1 o'clock now with my new job. I'm going to get up at like 5 and try to head up to Pikes Peak, McGregor area, and fingers crossed. I know DNR says that the colors are supposed to peak this coming week, so I will be busy then, so I'm going to try it then. So as always, thank you guys for coming. Hopefully you enjoyed Chuck, as I always do. I love Chuck's humor and just he's such a genuine person. He's, I've seen Moose Peterson, a lot of those guys up on stage, and to be honest, I enjoy Chuck a lot more because he's a down-to-earth person and he does it for the love when I think a lot of people do it for the money. So awesome. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you all here back next Tuesday with something. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Sorry about that. And maybe I'll touch a little bit good luck on the color hunt. I hope so, Corey. So, I should mention, I am going to try to maybe do a pop-up online class or two here coming up. If you're interested, they'll be like $45-50. It'll all be via Zoom. I'll let everybody know, but that is one of my big things this year is I'm hoping to pop up some classes that are more, I was actually working on artwork before the show started, waiting for Chuck. So for, I think an ICM class is in store. So if you're interested in intentional camera movement, introduction to exposure, I know that's very basic of shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, but I will say I'm sitting in an intermediate exposure class right now, and we went through those 3 things today, and we talked about gray cards. Did I know all of it? I knew a majority of it, but I took one piece of information from that class, and now I'm going to put it into my workflow, and it'll be interesting. So it's another class from Paul's that I'm joining in on. So again, I'll stop rambling. I got lots of things. I need to be more organized lately. My ADHD brain is at full power lately. So I will let you guys all go. Stop rambling. You have a wonderful evening. Maybe if I get some time tomorrow, I'll post some behind the scenes shots of the road and some videos or something. Who knows? I always have something on my sleeve. So as always, thank you, Corey, Connie, everybody else that's on here that I don't know, and see you all next week.